Looking forward to hearing Jody London's report, our sustainability coordinator for Contra Costa County. We have a county sustainability coordinator. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you to the Board of Supervisors for doing that for us. I am very pleased to introduce Jody London, the sustainability coordinator for Contra Costa County.
Good morning, everybody. It's really a pleasure to be here with you. It's exciting compared to last year at this time where I didn't know as many of you. This year I know many of you, see many familiar faces, and actually I'm happy to see those of you who I know, and I'm more interested in meeting those of you who I haven't met yet, because that means you're a new audience. So we're going to, if we can go, while the slides are coming on, I want to thank Mark for all his great work and his vision. And I want to thank Sustainable Contra Costa for having us here. And I also want to recognize several of my colleagues from Contra Costa County are here today. So if you all could stand up if you work for the county. Thank you, Susan. But come and talk with us. Anybody who you just saw stand up, come and talk with us during the day. Ask us questions. We have different roles, and we're thrilled to be here. And the one person who stepped out of the room is Frank DeMassa in our Public Works Department. He is the county's energy manager, and that means with Frank's arrival, that means that the county now has the ability to actually better monitor how we're using energy in our own buildings. So that's really important to me, and he's a great partner for me. If we can go to the next slide. So I'm going to try to make this quick so we can get to the conversation. I'm going to tell you 4 things. I'm going to remind you about the county's greenhouse gas emissions profile, give you an overview of what I do and what my job entails, talk to you about some of the different organizations that I'm supporting and the initiatives I support, and then talk about the projects that I'm working on, because right now I'm an office of one. I will probably always be an office of one. I have people who help me, but in terms of content, you're looking at the Contra Costa County Office of Sustainability, and we are thrilled to be here. So we'll go to the next slide. This is the county's emissions profile. This comes from our Climate Action Plan, which was adopted at the end of 2015. This data is from 2013. It does not include the large industrial sources. The large industrial plants along the waterfront are regulated by the Bay Area Air Quality Management District, so we have really no ability to influence what they do beyond public pressure, which you all are very helpful with. So when you look at our emissions profile, this matches what we see in the rest of California. And the main thing to notice is that big chunk right in the middle, on-road transportation. 47% of the emissions in Contra Costa County come from people driving cars and other vehicles, but predominantly personal vehicles. So when Mark started asking me about this conference, I said, Mark, I really think you need to look at the transportation sector. Over on the far left, we have non-residential energy and residential energy. That means buildings. That's the built environment. So our emissions profile is predominantly cars, followed by buildings. Landfills are 14%, solid waste. Now, if this, and I had just started hearing about this thing with China not taking solid waste, it's a huge issue. Our solid waste staff is spending a lot of time right now on trying to figure that out. So that's the emissions profile. And I brought only 5 hard copies of this deck because I was trying to be mindful about paper. So I have a few copies if you want one. I'm happy to send it to you, and I'm sure Sustainable Contra Costa will post the PDF on their website. Next slide, please. This is from a study that was done about 10 years ago of county operations. So these are county buildings, and this was a municipal climate action plan. And again, employee commute, 44%. Even though these data are somewhat old, I don't think the number would be significantly different if we looked at it again today. And then over here on the right, building electricity, building natural gas. Again, that's our built environment. So these things are tracking. Next slide. Now I'm going to talk a little more about my role. So this is where I got kind of fun. So you have to push it, 1, 2, you know. So this is what my job description says I should do. The first thing that the Board of Supervisors anticipated I would do would be to basically help all the different departments in the county work together. So I staff an ad hoc committee of the Board of Supervisors. I help facilitate county staff. I do a lot of cross-departmental work, and I'm still meeting people within the county. I'm supposed to plan and track our progress towards achieving our climate action goals, and those types of, interdepartmental stuff. Next slide. I look at money, try to find sources of money. When my job was created, they anticipated there would be a lot of money coming from greenhouse gas reduction funds, which are coming out of the state's cap and trade program. There hasn't been that much money there, but we're definitely looking at it, and we did actually bring in one small grant that I'll talk about in a bit. Energy efficiency programs, it's in my job description, but there's actually, Frank is back, and Frank works on internal to the county energy efficiency, and we have other staff in the Department of Conservation and Development who do a lot of work with the East Bay Energy Watch, the Bay Area Regional Energy Network, and other outward-facing programs. Policy development and new initiatives. In a few minutes, I'm going to talk a lot about the different initiatives I'm working on and some of the policies that we've adopted already. And then the final responsibility I have is that great catch-all, other duties as required. Am I not close enough to the mic? Thank you. Okay, so now I'm going to tell you a little bit about the different organizations that I staff within the county. So there is an ad hoc committee on sustainability. This is a committee of the Board of Supervisors, and you can't see very well, but this is my very cool map of the county with a picture of each supervisor superimposed. I was very pleased about that. Our ad hoc committee on sustainability is chaired by Supervisor John Joya, who represents District 1, which is West County, and the other member of that committee is Supervisor Federal Glover, who has the Northern Waterfront area and is currently chair of the Board of Supervisors. This committee meets every other month, and they focus on monitoring and tracking how are we doing in meeting the Climate Action Plan goals. The next meeting is going to be next Monday, November 13th at 12:30. If you are interested in following the Ad Hoc Committee on Sustainability, we can add you to the list, and you'll get a notification about 4 days before the meeting that the meeting is going to happen, just with the agenda and other things. So now we'll go to the next thing. The next group that I staff is an ad hoc. It's a citizen advisory committee. It's a sustainability commission. So the Board of Supervisors about a year ago said, we know there's so much interest in sustainability, and I had started to meet people across the county. Let's create an advisory body, a sustainability commission. So this commission has its purpose has three goals: advise the Board of Supervisors and staff on issues related to the Climate Action Plan implementation and sustainability issues, but really focusing around the Climate Action Plan. Advise the Board of Supervisors on opportunities to realize equity and fairness across the diverse communities of our county. And then advise the Board of Supervisors and staff on how to better engage Contra Costa County residents and businesses. So, I know I saw one member of our commission, Gretchen Logue, is in the back, and later this afternoon, Harry Thurston is right here in the middle, and, Kathy Cutting. Okay, thank you, Kathy. Thank you all for identifying yourselves. Later this afternoon, you'll hear from Travis Curran, another member of our Sustainability Commission. When we created this opportunity last fall, when the board created the opportunity last fall, we had 35 people apply for 10 seats. We thought that was pretty incredible and great turnout. If we go to the next slide, I don't know that you can read it from the back, but these are the different members. So there are 2 seats for at-large community groups. There are 2 seats, I have to put on my glasses, for businesses. Kathy Cutting holds one of those seats. There's a seat for environmental justice. There's a seat for education. And then each supervisor appointed a member and an alternate. So the board actually created some additional seats just to get more voices at the table with the Sustainability Commission. The Sustainability Commission right now is meeting every other month. They're alternating with the Board of Supervisors. That's something we're thinking about because they're a very active group and they want to meet more frequently, and we have to figure out how we can staff that. Oh, hey, look, there's a clicker right here. Yep. I can do it myself. All right. The third thing I wanted to tell you about, I didn't realize that, is the Sustainability Exchange. So when I started in this job, I met my counterparts in the cities, and most cities don't have a sustainability person. They have someone who's a planner, and then they also do 5 million other things, and and what those people said to me was, It is lonely being the only person in my town who works on sustainability. It would be great if I had a place where I could go to meet other people who are working on sustainability. So we have now completed almost a full year of the Sustainability Exchange. It's a quarterly venue where local government staff, and we define that as anyone in Contra Costa County who works for a city, county, or special district or another organization that reports to with a governing board of elected officials. So basically, you're spending the public's money and making sure it's spent well. We come together quarterly, we network, we exchange information. If you fall into this category and you're not on my list, see me right away. I want to make sure you can come to these meetings. They're really fun, and people really enjoy them, and I always make a coffee cake. So that's the commercial for the Sustainability Exchange. Now I'm going to tell you some more about some of the projects I'm working on. The first one I want to tell you about is a renewable resource potential study. We received a small grant from the Strategic Growth Council, which is a state agency, to look at what is the potential in Contra Costa for different types of renewable resources. Not only solar, but wind, biomass, and biogas. Right now in Contra Costa County, if you came to the Department of Conservation and Development and you said, I want to build a 4 megawatt solar project and I'm going to sell the excess energy to MCE or I'm going to sell it to somebody, you can't do it because our zoning ordinances are silent on the issue of large-scale renewable resource installation, with the exception of wind, because we have all the wind out in the Altamont Pass. So with this study, we are in the process of finalizing a contract with Cadmus Group to do an assessment of our renewable resource potential. So where in the county do we have viable sites for these different technologies? And then they're going to help us look at our current zoning and recommend changes to our zoning so that we can better accommodate the renewables. The third piece of this study is we're going to be working with the communities in Bay Point, Rodeo, and North Richmond, where hopefully our assessment is going to show us there's potential for community energy projects, and see if there's interest in those communities in developing a community energy project and figuring out how we would actually do that. So it's a 3-part study. We're pretty excited about it. We've created an opportunity for cities to participate, so I'm in the process of communicating with the cities who exhibited some interest in figuring out how we can get them involved in getting their jurisdictions assessed for the potential for these different resources as well. The one thing I want to say is that we are looking for a quick fix on the issue of solar, on how we can site larger scale solar. And next week, November 8th, the County Planning Commission is going to be hearing a proposed amendment on this topic that would allow people to come in for a kind of a conditional use permit, a 1-by-1 review if you wanted to install a commercial solar project. So again, let me know if you have questions. I can connect you with the lead on that. The next thing, and this is an important one. Many of you have been advocates for community choice energy. As you are aware, the Board of Supervisors voted in May, and several cities, 8 cities, also voted in April and May and June to join MCE. They are changing their name from even Marin Clean Energy MCE to something else to be determined. But we're joining MCE, and the switchover, because this is always the big question, when's everyone going to actually assume service, is going to happen in April or May. You're going to start to see notifications from MCE, and I believe there are MCE staff here in the back, maybe. There's, okay. You're going to start to see notices from MCE if you live in a jurisdiction that's switching to MCE, probably around February or March. But what I wanted to point out to you is what a difference it's going to make for MCE now that our Contra Costa County jurisdictions are on their board. We represent 60, I can't read my own numbers, 65% of the load that MCE, 69% of the load that MCE serves is in Contra Costa County. Remember, there were 5 cities that already belonged, and now you have the unincorporated county plus 8 other cities joining. So it's really a big amount. And we have 56% of the voting share on their board if the Contra Costa jurisdictions vote as a block. So I'm going to leave it at that with MCE, and just, we can talk more about that. The next thing I wanted to talk to you about is the Idle-Free Pledge. How many of you know about the Idle-Free Pledge? Oh, okay, this is pretty good. but we can do better. I want to thank Jessica Williams in the orange sweater. Jessica Williams is with the Contra Costa Spare the Air Resource Team, which is a project of the Bay Area Air Quality Management District. And I met her at this event last year, started going to her convenings, and realized that it would be a great thing for the Board of Supervisors to say, hey, we agree that idling, it's a small thing, but it matters. When your car is running for more than 30 seconds, it's just polluting. It's just not a good thing. So there's a lot of research out there to back this. The Board of Supervisors all took a pledge, and they encourage all the residents and businesses in Contra Costa County to do this as well. If you're going to be picking your kid up from soccer practice, you're waiting at a drive-through for whatever, for any reason you're idling for a while, you're stuck in traffic on 680 and it's really not moving, and you know that because you heard that on the radio, just turn off your engine. It'll come right back on. We're really looking for more ideas for community engagement on this, so if you have any thoughts about that, please see me or Jessica. We are happy to help you and get you involved in helping us spread the word on this. So electric vehicles. We heard, we're going to hear later today about autonomous buses. We know there's a lot of money coming down the pike for electric vehicles. The Air District has its Charge Grant program that's been running for quite a while. PG&E was authorized last spring to spend $130 million to install 7,500 EV charging stations across its service territory. The focus of that is going to be in hopefully in multifamily. That was kind of the direction they were given, because it's much harder if you live in a multifamily situation to charge your car. I drive a Nissan Leaf, and if anybody is interested in a test drive, I'm happy to show you around, give you a little ride at lunchtime. Or anyhow, and then the PG&E has also applied to the California PUC for an additional $654 million that it would spend to install 25,000 more chargers. So looking beyond the private vehicle into different, like medium, heavy duty. Having worked at and with the CPUC for many years, it's unlikely they will get that full amount, but there's definitely going to be more money given to electric vehicles. And then the Volkswagen settlement, notwithstanding all their really friendly ads on TV, Volkswagen is paying a huge fine of $800 million to the state of California, so that money is going to be coming in. So I want to position Contra Costa County to be ready to take advantage of these opportunities. So I am working with the Contra Costa Transportation Authority, and we're working to put together a shared mobility EV readiness. Shared mobility means buses, fleets, heavy-duty vehicles, electric bikes, any vehicle that's going to need to be charged. We want to make sure that there's the right infrastructure where you can pull in, charge, keep going. And the technology is going to be keeping up. I was in a meeting recently with some folks from Tesla, and they said, we've got 400,000 vehicles coming off the line next year, and you guys aren't ready for it. And then there was an interesting moment where some staff from the Air District said, well, where do you think you need these? And they said, we can't tell you where the cars are going to be because that's proprietary, but that's a different matter. But we know these vehicles are coming. Tesla usually has its own infrastructure. Maybe it's thinking now it needs to take advantage of the public infrastructure. We want to be ready. So we're looking for funding. If you happen to be a foundation and you want to help fund this planning study for us, let me know, because that would help us out a lot. Adapting to rising tides. How many of you have heard about adapting to rising tides? Not too many. Okay, this is really important. Particularly, I think that the recent events, the floods, the hurricanes, the fires, I think people are seeing that there's a connection between what's happening with the climate and what's happening in our world. And it's not always going to be a one-for-one, but things are different. We didn't used to have hurricanes that were quite so forceful. So the Bay Conservation and Development Commission has been doing this Adapting to Rising Tides project around the Bay Area, and Contra Costa County, when I joined last year, was just finishing up what has turned out to be the first phase of a study from Richmond over to Bay Point. And this map, I don't know how well you can see it from the back, but those blue areas, those are areas that are going to be subject to inundation. The light blue areas, not the dark blue is the bay. But in between the tan and the dark blue, those are areas that are going to be potentially subject to inundation. Now, this is a one snapshot. When you actually look at the data set, which you can find if you just Google adapting to rising tides, you should be able to find it. The study produced, just basically a catalog of things to think about and be aware of in 6 different areas, looking at water-dependent industries, employment sites, creekside communities, access to services, flood protection, parks and open spaces. How do we plan around this? How do we know where the vulnerable populations are? How do we know, like in many parts of Contra Costa County, it's the railroad tracks that serve as the levee. The railroad tracks weren't designed to be a levee. They were designed to convey the railroad. So if there were to be 5-foot sea level rise for some reason, what would happen? So we need to really think about that, and what we really need on this particular issue is an implementation framework. It ideally would probably be some kind of a public-private partnership, and I'm just putting that out there. We got really lucky. So this study had ended right at Pittsburgh because that's where BCDC's jurisdiction ends, and several months ago, I got a call from a guy with the Delta Stewardship Council, and he said, hey, we have $150,000 that we need to spend, and we think we'd like to expand your Adapting to Rising Tide study into the Delta. What do you think? And BCDC and the county were like, yes, please come in. So we are starting to launch that. We are going to actually be meeting with Supervisor Burgess tomorrow to talk about this. If you are from a city in the eastern part of the county, and you think there are groups in your city and your community that we should be talking to as we launch this Eastern Art, let me know. That's a pretty exciting thing we're doing. The final thing I wanted that I get involved with is ongoing projects in the county. And now that Frank DeMassa is here, I don't have to do quite as much of that because he carries a lot of the load. But the county is building a new administration building down on Pine Street in Martinez. We're building a new emergency operations center off of Highway 4 at Glacier Road. We have other projects going on. So I do get called on to help out with those projects and think about the sustainability issues. So that's just a little bit of what I do day to day. That's really what I have, and I really now would love to open it up for questions and comments. Thank you. And I see the mic, Doug is circulating with the mic. Anybody have a question?
See if we can, there it is, we're live. If anybody needs the mic.
We have 2 mics, Bob has one on the other side.
Those buildings you just described, are they going to be zero net energy buildings?
Well, that is a good question. The county's design standard is LEED Silver, which is the lowest of the LEED things. The county doesn't have zero net energy as its design criteria. If that's something you're interested in, it would be probably useful to convey that to your member of the Board of Supervisors.
Jody, question. On the rising tides, what was the time frame and the height of the rise that light blue area was?
I'm not sure. But when you get into the study, it gives you multiple scenarios. It says, it doesn't really give you time frames. It looks more at what would happen if sea level were to rise 2 feet, 5 feet, 8 feet. It does, because it could happen at any time.
But the light blue, was that 2 feet or was it 5 feet or 8 feet?
I'm sorry, I don't know. I'll have to check on that.
Jody?
Yeah.
So you've got your office and you've got the commission. Describe your interagency relationships. I mean, are you working with, say, the Small Business Development Center, the Green Business Program, and so forth? I mean, is there an active stitching together of all the government agencies?
So we do come together with the Sustainability Exchange that I described.
Okay.
There are certain departments that I work with I work very closely with Public Works on not only on the energy piece, but I also work with I am at meetings where Public Works and Transportation and the Health Department are talking about issues of public health and infrastructure. We haven't convened a formal, countywide department thing because most departments don't have a sustainability focus yet. So that's something that we're working on. But Susan Passara is here, and she and I talk regularly. Is there anything I'm missing?
Opportunity. Oh, sorry. I think that's a good opportunity for the different cities and different Lake County employees to kind of share what we're all doing, since, like, going back to the beginning of our presentation, it is kind of lonely when you're the only person in your office that's working in sustainability, and it's sometimes you're working in a silo. So I think the sustainability exchange has been really good in allowing us to share what we're doing.
But I do things like I recently took a management class that the county offered, mainly because I wanted the skills, but also just to meet other people. So I'm slowly building my own network.
So along those lines, from a political perspective, we live in challenging times politically, and although we tend to feel that there's a more progressive vibe in the county, give me some perspective on the politics of sustainability as you see it, perhaps at the board level, perhaps outside of the board. If you have any insights on that you can actually express in public.
Well, I mean, the politics of sustainability is, I'm not exactly sure, is there support for sustainability in the county?
Yeah.
Yes, and. Right, and I heard a really fascinating presentation yesterday by a guy with a group called Eco America, and ECO America, a guy named Dan Barry, Barry, and he was giving pointers on, they've done a lot of research around consumer attitudes, and he had a lot of suggestions about what language is effective to use, and I'm actually going to put that up right by my computer as I'm crafting my notes to people. But I think there's a point where people are like, no, that's too inconvenient, right? So I came back all excited about the idle-free pledge, and people are like, yeah, but it's 90 degrees outside, and I got to cool my car off before I get going, or whatever it is. So I really think the whole challenge of sustainability is that it's driven by millions and millions of individual actions that are taken every day, right? So how you reach people who aren't in this room, how you reach your neighbor, your in-laws, your, whoever it is down the block or in the next town who just doesn't see it your way is really our challenge. And if I knew the answer to that, I probably wouldn't be in this job. I'd have a different one that I would like just as much.
Well, one of the reasons I ask is that I was talking to some political leaders over there in Concord at their Thursday night concert series, and I said, so why isn't there a much more aggressive effort to collect recyclables? And other cities actually have requirements that every event includes a waste management challenge, right? And Green Mary, if you're familiar with Green Mary, all of the events in Sonoma and many, many events in San Francisco are required to include a recycling component. And yet we get 5,000 people every Thursday in Concord, and there's virtually no effort put into recycling. And it's not a mechanical issue, it's a political issue. And I don't think you have an insider on that or an answer to that, but it's my concern that there are these obvious things that we can do that aren't happening.
Yeah, I think that's fair. And I think when that's going to change, and then I'm going to go to Harry, and then I see this gentleman over here after Harry. But I think when that's going to change is when your elected officials say, this is the policy. So a lot of it, I think, comes down to you all going down to City Hall and saying, this is really important. And if I was a resident of Contra Costa County right now, what I would be doing is organizing in my city, and I would be looking at, given that transportation is such a big source of emissions in this county, I would be looking at the person from my city who sits on the Contra Costa Transportation Authority Board, and I would be meeting with that person and letting that person and that person's colleagues know my extreme support for complete streets, which is the idea that our streets are designed to accommodate multiple modes of transportation as well as pedestrians. Right now, most of our streets, I just came in on Taylor, and it's pretty focused on cars. And if you wanted to bike on Taylor, that, I would do it because I like to bike. Chris Dundon would do it because he likes to bike, but it's a little bit of a challenge, right? So, I would really be focusing on making sure that CCTA is adopting policies and spending sales tax money the way you think it should be spent. That's my short answer. So let's go to Harry.
Yes. What's the best way for people to interact with the county on the ideas they may have on sustainability? Is it through yourself or?
I am happy to meet with anybody or take a phone call. I'm happy to come out to where you are and you can show me the projects. I can be a conduit to the county staff who work on your issues, and some of you in this room have used that. I'll get an email from someone, I'm concerned about Keller landfill, connect you with our solid waste people. So that I can help play that role as well. We do have our Sustainability Commission, and our commissioners come from all over the county. So I would encourage you also to talk with our commissioners. Harry is one of them. Gretchen, Kathy, Travis will be here later. There's 15 of them. Supervisor Joya still needs to appoint his alternate. So, yeah. And there's someone right over here, I think, is the next question. Oh, okay. We'll go and then.
Hi, Jody. I'm actually going to preface my question to the audience first. And if you're with a private industry, private business, if you could just stand up. Congratulations. Thank you for being here. Okay. This prefaces my question. What would you say the biggest impediment for change in our community is? How do we change the minds and behaviors of people, and what are the barriers that you see in your position, and how do we break through them?
So I wish I had brought that guy's slides from yesterday because they were so good. But I think it's really helping people understand that this is really about your health and your investment in your community and in your property, right? So. And this may not be the best example, but if you compare the cost of preparing now for a flood or a fire or anything else, talk to the people out at Morgan Territory Road, right here in Contra Costa County. Those folks have been hugely inconvenienced because Morgan Territory Road is nowhere near the shoreline, but because of all the rain last year, the bridge that allows them to get out to where they live in unincorporated county totally gave way because it turned to mush, right? Same thing happened out in Canyon in Moraga. So the investment ahead of time and making that upfront investment is going to be much less expensive. So I think it's about reaching people where they are and what they care about, their family, their health, their investment in whatever it is they have going on, and really protecting that and preserving that. And I think most people are really interested, but you're at a table that says water conservation, so I want to talk with you later about what you think works, because you're an important partner for us. Great. Right here.
I want to acknowledge how much I'm learning from this experience, and I'm grateful for that. And my question is, and I also want to point out, you were wondering how to get information quickly to many families. So my question is, to what extent and how are you working with public education to let kids, people who are the primary educators of their parents, discover and learn about these things?
So I don't have a direct route into the Contra Costa County schools. In my spare time, I serve on the Oakland School Board, so I try to do that there. But that's a great suggestion, and figuring ways, and maybe this is something our Sustainability Commission will think about, is how do we reach school districts, PTAs. I go about once a year. The Contra Costa County Office of Education convenes a meeting for facilities managers, so I'm going to be going back to that group in a month or two. They're pretty interested, I think, in the MCE transition. but there are some ways. I can just say that you're absolutely right. And the state has science standards. And one of the things I'm really interested in is how can we make sure that the state science standards are including climate change in the curriculum that teachers are required to teach. I mean, I think that's the easiest way to do it. There's also a lot that can be done if the schools can find time to figure out how to organize like energy patrols. In the same way they have safety patrols, the kids could go around and check on lights, check on leaky faucets, that kind of thing. So I think there are lots of opportunities. It's a great idea. Pele has the mic, and then we'll go over to you, Oren.
That would be Paleo.
Paleo, sorry. Go ahead. You're in.
So my name's Paleo Walker, and I'm the president of Daily Digital Imaging. We are a social media, direct marketing, and mailing company. And so the gentleman over there in the Contra Costa Water District actually is making my point here, which is there's very few business people here. And I'm a certified green business through the Certified Green Business program for the Contra Costa County, and have been since 2005. So every year, every 36 months, we got to go through this certification. So it's not just do it, rest, and you're done. It doesn't work like that. One of the tenets of being a certified green business is that you go out and talk to your fellow business person and let them know the advantages of being green, whatever that is, whatever our experience is. And I got to tell you, most people do not care. And we work with really large businesses. We print for Cisco, Jamba Juice, Jelly Belly, Pizza Coffee, those companies. Only 2 of those companies have a vice president of sustainability. The rest of them do not care. It always comes down to price. And I asked them right up front, do you care about that we're a woman-owned business? Do you care that we're an honorably discharged combat veteran business? Do you care that we're certified green and have been for years? Do you care that we don't use water, solvent, and chemicals? They just look at me and go, we just care about the price. And the county and the cities are exactly the same. So until we can actually tell them from an economic point of view how this impacts you, they don't care. And remember, every time, Carol, you asked a good question. Well, why aren't we at the top lead for every building? Well, remember, it's going to cost all of us that extra money to pay it. So do we want to pay it? I mean, that's really what the supervisors are going through every single day, is balancing this versus that. And that's really what they're doing, because we're holding their hands to whatever it is that we think should be done. But I got to tell you, as a business person, you're talking about being lonely. I feel really lonely as a green business person out there. And I believe in it. And I talk about it. And I'm passionate about it. And I can't get other businesses to come and use us. I can't get other organizations to use us just simply saying that we're woman-owned, green, and veteran. That's not enough. At the end of the day, it's always about the money. Look at who partners up with things. They're always going to something that can print for free or do something for them for free, because it's always about that. One of the things where I really wanted to say was, I noticed during your whole presentation that mostly you're dealing with governments. Yep. You're dealing with organizations. So I'm sitting here as a business person. I'm an activist. I care. I come here. I didn't see anything that connected to businesses in a day-to-day way. That's why I asked to meet with you. I want to know, so now I know what you do, but now I realize that maybe I don't need to meet with you because I'm not really in your sphere of what you're doing. So I'm just trying to figure that part out, because I don't want to waste your time either.
Well,
that's our taxpayer dollars at work.
I mean, you're correct, Bello, that my role is really a role that's internal to the county. I team up with Susan, who really holds the Green Business Program piece, and maybe the 3 of us should talk about, is there something that we could be doing to give you more of a place in a community of like-minded folks. But that when the board created my position, it was because they saw this. I heard yesterday the county has 10,000 employees, right? How does the county bring them together? How do we get them walking the walk? So there's a lot of work for me to do just within the county, but I'm also really aware and thankful for the contributions and the leadership that you show. Oren.
Yeah. And I'm really glad to be here. This is the second Sustainable Enterprise Conference I've been to in 2 weeks, and so my question is about the regional approach. You talked about feeling alone and gathering your cohort locally. What can you learn from other counties, and what is going on? And I think this might even kind of address, in many counties, your position is about county operations. Have you seen other communities that are using your position in more of an outreach? And again, what can we learn regionally from that?
I'm just starting to, it's funny because in my prior job, I worked a lot with local government, so I know a lot of the county, I know more of the energy managers from the work I did previously. I'm starting to meet some of those folks because I do go to regional convenings from time to time. In most other counties, it's more than one person who's doing it, so they have a greater capacity to do that type of outreach. I think that would be the first answer. I also know that most of those counties, it started with one person, and then they saw the value. There started to be more funding coming in, so you needed more people to manage the money. So it all kind of came together. But yeah, I'm someone who likes going to those kinds of meetings. For a lot of people, it's real. Like when you work in Martinez, it's hard to think. Like if I decide that I'm going to go to a meeting in San Francisco, that's pretty much my whole day, right? So, getting people out of their offices and to go somewhere different is a pretty tough sell. Even within Contra Costa County, get people to come to our quarterly sustainability exchange meetings. They have to think about, am I willing to take a morning off and come in from Antioch or come up from San Ramon or wherever they're coming from for this meeting? What's the value I'm going to get from it? So you have to make sure you have a very compelling agenda. And there is huge value in it, you're correct.
Jody, if I could add just a comment to address the interface between government and business. One of the things that fascinates me about what's going on with all of this is that, for example, right now from the Santa Rosa fire, they're looking at $3 billion of insurance reimbursed costs. By the time you get done, I'm sure it's going to be much higher than that, and that there's going to be a lot that's not covered by insurance. In the last 10 years, we've seen the flood insurance rates go up for every place from New York City after Sandy to the Gulf Coast around Biloxi and various other places that were ravaged by Katrina and so on. Bottom line is everybody is complaining about the increased costs that are coming back at them as a result of the fact that, it's too expensive for us to actually address climate change. I can guarantee you, like it or not, your business owners who don't want to consider anything other than cost will pay attention when the insurance rates go through the roof or when their taxes go up because you're going to have to build some sort of a dike, some sort of a levee along 30 or 40 miles of the San Francisco Bay Line and raise the water treatment plants and various other things to be able to take into account the various changes in sea level and so on and so forth, that are storm surge and so on. What I don't understand is why we're unwilling to think about paying now as opposed to paying later. But that's just me. I'm not sure that I completely understand the problem.
Great. Tina has a question in back.
So Doug is our manager for the East Bay Energy Watch program. Sustainable Contra Costa reaches out to small businesses in partnership with the county to get them to take advantage of these great rebates for energy upgrades. It's not easy to get people to pay attention, and you often have to touch them many times to get them to listen. So that's one of the things that we're trying to do, and we want people to approach us if you have ideas for, more often than once a year at the Sustainable Enterprise Conference to really engage businesses. But I wonder where, there's one person here from the Board of Supervisors offices, and who are you with?
Karen Mitchoff.
Okay. This is her district, right? I'm wondering where the other staff members are, and I think that they have constituents, they can touch everybody. And, maybe we can work better with the supervisors to reach out with messaging to their constituents about the importance and what people can do. I think business owners are so busy I think that's why they don't care and they don't pay attention, because they're just trying to get by. And I think we need to find ways to message better to them and give them opportunities to do something and just give them ways to take action.
Hi, Jody. I wanted to address the issue of the business. I work in water conservation, and in my view, the model that seems to work is, I'll use clothes washers as an example. Many years ago, water agencies started providing rebates for clothes washers, high-efficiency washers. And we basically primed the pump for clothes washers in California. It was statewide. Metropolitan Water in Southern California put a lot of money into it. Throughout the Bay Area, we did. They're now regulated. It's pretty much all you can buy in a store is a high-efficiency washer. So we sort of prime the pump and then have a regulation take over. I'm not big in throwing regulations like we did in 1994 when we said you must have a 1.6-gallon toilet. We did it, the regulation, before we tested it. So all the manufacturers made lousy toilets, and everyone said, oh, they're low-flow toilets, flush them twice. Subsequent to that, now the regulation in California is 1.28-gallon toilets. But prior to that, we pushed the manufacturers, we got third-party testing, and now they're better than ever. They flush very well. So to me, the model for business is you prime the pump with equipment or practices. When it becomes commonplace and easy to do, then you regulate it, because it's not fair for his business if he's competing against people who are not on a level playing field. So if using a certain type of ink or whatever is more environmentally friendly in printing, then maybe the county, if that's been proven, then maybe the county then regulates this. You want to run a print shop in my town, you have to have it at this level. And then it's a level playing field.
That's a great point. I'm just going to do a plug. So Travis Curran just walked in. You're going to hear from Travis later today, and I encourage you. I'm fascinated to hear because Travis runs a residential treatment center here in Pleasant Hill, and he decided that facility was not green enough, and so he, you're trained as a counselor, right? And he went in and retrofitted the whole place. And so that's going to be a really fascinating presentation. And that was a private business that just did it. And now Travis is leading an effort for his organization statewide around this. So I think it's going to be a really fascinating conversation later today. Anything else?
I know we've got a couple people from the Sustainability Commission here. Do you guys have any comments specifically about your experience on the commission? I'm not looking for a critique. I mean, what you see, your visions, accomplishments, actions that we can take to support your efforts?
They're still forming, but go ahead and
yeah, that's fine. Yeah, go ahead. Go ahead.
Well, my own personal feeling is it's so wonderful to be able to get off the sidewalk and get into the street and start working on this stuff and start looking at all the massive things that we need to do and making recommendations that they can be done. It's just good to be in the game, and that's the best thing.
Great. Any other questions? Quick question? No? Okay. Great. Well, Jody, thank you very much. Appreciate it.